Mike, welcome back to You Interview. You were one of the very first interviews for this website almost exactly 15 years ago. So thank you for coming back. I'm glad we didn't scare you off last time.
Even more viewers now than last time.
For sure. So congratulations. I know you have a new album coming out.
Yeah.
You've had some health issues. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened to you physically and how it's affected your music?
Yeah, well, last year I was diagnosed with pneumonia and my leukemia went out of control, and it was all on the back of the Alarm's 40th anniversary celebration tour. And I found myself plummeted into a very dark world. I wasn't sure of the outcome. I was in hospital for a very long time, and he was going to be in for a long time. So I got my wife Jules to bring my guitar in onto the ward so I could keep my fingers going and keep my brain active. And all of a sudden, songs started appearing out of nowhere. You know, even the other people on the ward were like, keep going with the guitar, we like hearing the sound, you know. And then there's the heart monitors, do, do, do. They became like a rhythm track. And then there was even a fan at the foot of my bed one day, and he'd come to see he'd flown from America and to see his father. There was a challenging potential terminal situation for his father, so he wanted to see him one last time. And he said, I saw you here yesterday, and it's Mike Peters, isn't it? I went, yeah. And he goes, I'm a massive fan. He goes, in fact, I was on all the alarm forums last night telling him, Mike's in the cancer centre near my dad and all this sort of stuff. And I was thinking, oh no, it's public now. So I had to write a letter to all the alarm fans, an open letter to reassure them that I was going to be all right, or I thought I was going to be all right. And I signed off the letter with the word Forwards. And I thought, that's a song, that's an album title. And that was it. And then I resolved to make the record that we did.
Yeah, so talk about the songs that came out of it. Is there one that sort of speaks to you the most out of this experience?
Yeah, I think 8 of the 10 songs really came out of the situation. And look, I've been in some life-threatening situations before, and you look for music to be your inspiration. You know, especially now when I'm in hospital, we live in such litigious times. Yeah. Doctors won't really give you hope anymore. They give you the facts. They don't give you, oh, it's going to be okay, or it's going to be all right. You're going to make it. You know, they won't say that in case you don't, and then someone holds it against them in the future. So you had to find your own hope, really, and because I knew that the doctors were testing me for things. They weren't telling me why, but I knew they were. Like, we all use Dr. Google, don't we? And go on and put your symptoms in and think, oh my God, this is where I could be going. So I knew I had to find a defense mechanism to sort of focus my mind towards recovery. And luckily I had my guitar there, and I was able to channel it into songs. And one of the first songs I wrote was, "What Are You Ready for What's Next?" And I think that was me asking myself the question, are you ready for what's next? Could it be the end, or is it the start of a whole new life? And I wasn't sure at the time. So, the song kind of covers both outcomes. And I was quite, philosophically happy with it. If this was my last time alive, I've asked for so much, I've taken so much out of life, then so be it. But I had this instinct that I was going to make it, and I thought if I can get out of this, it'd be such a good feeling, and that's what I want to come across in the record. And so Next was even recorded the video for the song, thundering down the corridors as if I was on my way out of hospital. And in the same, that night I would walk the corridors in between the IV sessions to kind of keep my muscle strength going. So all the songs have come out of this experience of wanting to stay alive, and I wanted the record to be about where I was going, not where I'd been. And hence the title Forwards.
Yeah. And you and your wife have sort of channeled some of this energy that you got from the experience into some positive good, and have helped to renovate a chapel.
Yeah,
we this hospital.
We in 2003 I bought a chapel in the village. It became the Alarm's creative hub. It was a studio where we'd rehearse, record, store equipment, make videos, run the internet website out of there, all the things. And then we found another place we were moving to, so we decided to turn it into apartments, maybe for something for our children to manage in the future. And then in the lockdown, we were playing right when Boris Johnson told us all to stay indoors. And we were supposed to be playing that night, so we went out live from our sofa like this. And I thought, I've done enough of these, I'm sure we can put one together, and we did. And it became really strong, and it was a great way of communicating with the fans. And then we started thinking we could do events for 30 people in Wales in the pandemic era. So we could have 30 people gathered together, and they'd all stay in the Alarm Chapel studio apartments. And then we put little gigs for them in the village hall, in the community centre. And then we ended up buying the hotel next door, and we converted that into a bar, music, coffee shop, venue. And we've grown into this whole other world because of what happened to us in the pandemic. And that's lots down to my wife, Jules, having the vision to make it happen, and instinct of wanting to do things. And it's been great.
Yeah, and you have a charity that's come out of this experience.
Yeah, we started a charity in 2007 called Love, Hope, Strength, and that was really down to because I was having to deal with cancer long term, and then I thought I'd taken the bullet for our family in terms of cancer, and then my wife Jules was diagnosed in 2017, and she had to go through the whole breast cancer journey, and that's not kind on a woman when it involves surgery and radiation and chemotherapy, and it was touch and go. And but I was really inspired by her bravery. We were actually making a documentary for the BBC about myself, and Jules's diagnosis was captured on film, and the producer said, "Can we film Jules going through this? Would you?" And Jules was kind enough to let the cameras follow her through all the things that woman has to go through behind the clothes when their breasts get mutilated with surgery and they have to rebuild their bodies. And it's amazing. I don't think we quite realise how invasive it is for a woman to go through breast cancer, and I find it incredibly moving to be part of the story and just become a carer and see cancer from the other side of the fence rather than being the patient.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people go through these experiences, these health challenges, but doing it in a public way and doing it in a public way with your wife also must be really challenging, a really different kind of experience. Talk about that a little bit.
I think it helped us to bring it out into the open and make it public.
Yeah.
And then people weren't afraid to come up to us and talk about it. And we find it quite comforting being able to talk about it. And then people say, hey, we're going through it as well, and we could share in the experiences together. And when you share a problem, it's a problem halved, isn't it? It becomes less a problem in a way, and you get more support. And I think we both found it therapeutic having to talk to the cameras. Camera became like our therapist.
Yeah.
And because people are asking us questions and asking us to verbalise what our experiences were, we started to learn about them more and realise we challenge our energy in the right way here, or we need to fix this a bit more. And the whole experience just it added to it in a way, and it gave us a chance to really energise our hope, and we wanted to see it through. We didn't want it to become a sad story. We wanted it to be a winning story and an optimistic story, and I think that gave us the will to keep moving forward and staying positive at all times.
Yeah. No, you guys are known for some unusual concerts, these high altitude concerts, if I recall. Tell us a little bit about how that idea came about and some of the ones you've done.
Yeah, well, I was in hospital in 2005, and I was having chemotherapy for the first time in 2005 into 2006. And I could, from the window of the cancer centre where I was being treated, I could see the highest mountain in England and Wales, which is in Wales, Mount Snowdon. And it called to me almost, and think, you've got to if you want to be well, it means you're going to have to be strong enough to get up to the mountaintop. And I thought, well, I can't do it alone, so I'm going to take all the fans with me. And that became the mission for me to get out of hospital. I knew I'd be well enough once I got to that mountain, and I thought I'll raise funds for the nursing staff who were helping me so much. Not just the doctors, but the nurses and the ancillary staff. They help you with your well-being, bring you a cup of tea at the right time, and when you're feeling a bit low, they get, and you're shaking with the disease a bit, they bring you a blanket and comfort you in those ways without giving you hope or false hope. They just help you ease through the journey. And I thought there was a gap where there's so much cancer funding going into research, but there wasn't, and certainly in 2007 there wasn't a lot going in on the front line. So I thought, if I climb that mountain, we'll give all the money to the nursing staff here in North Wales to help with when other people come in, and if it's kids who need a book or parents who need to understand what their children are maybe going through, or vice versa, we'll help them to buy the books or some extra pillows or some seats for people to sit on so when they're visiting. Little comforts like that help ease the way through, help ease the path. And so we did Snowdon. It was a massively successful event. And then next week we found, let's go to Everest. And we did it there. And we went to Kalapatar above base camp. And it happened to be the world's highest gig on land at the time.
How many people went to Everest?
34.
Wow.
Yeah, and we had Glenn Tilbrook from
Wow.
Squeeze and other musicians.
Yeah.
Slim Jim from the Stray Cats and Cy Kernan from the Fix. And it was an amazing adventure. And then all the Sherpa were helping us carry our guitars and baggage up the mountain because that's the only way up there. And then when they realised that we were raising the funds in America and the UK and Europe, we were leaving it in Nepal, and it was going to go to help support the Back to Ball Cancer Centre in Kathmandu that would benefit their families, not people abroad. They couldn't believe it. They said everyone climbs Everest and fundraises, but it's to fundraise back home where they come from. No one's done it for us before. And we said, well, this is what we do. This is Love, Hope, Strength. And we knew that the money raised by climbing Everest, if we brought it back to America or UK, for instance, it's dropping the ocean, really. But keeping it in Nepal, it could affect a massive change. And we were able to buy the first mammography machines for the country in Nepal.
Amazing.
And it meant that they could, women who needed to have breast cancer screenings and things like that could have it be at home with their family. They didn't have to fly to India where they were those kind of machines. They could actually have them in Nepal, and that made a big difference. And that just inspired us on then to do simple things that can really help ease people through the journey of having to live with cancer.
Now, I'd like to hear a little bit about your history. One of the questions that we are known for is asking about how people got started in their careers. So tell us a little bit about how you first started in music.
Well, it was by being. I used to go to watch football, Manchester United a lot, and I'm a big United supporter. And I'd be on the Stretford end. I wasn't that interested in music, but then there was a band called Slade in the 70s, and they had an album out, and I was kind of intrigued what they were because all the fans would clap along to the song. And I went to this record shop in Rhyl, where I lived, and I picked up the album. I was going to buy it, and I flipped it over and looked at the back, and it said, first song was like In Like a Shot from My Gun, and I had it in brackets after it's Slade. And then there was another one that said Darling Be Home Soon, in brackets John Sebastian. I thought, who's that? He's not in Slade. And then at the end they had another song, Born to Be Wild and in brackets Steppenwolf. And I thought, I don't want a record with Steppenwolf on it, I just want Slade. I'm not buying this. It's only got 5 Slade songs on it or something. And I didn't know. So I bought Aladdin Sane by David Bowie instead because I like Driving Saturday. That had come out at the same time. And I took the record home, put it on the turntable and opened up the inner sleeve, which you couldn't see in the shop. And there's all the lyrics. And in the brackets after a song called Let's Spend the Night Together, it said Jagger Richards. And I knew they were the guys in the Rolling Stones. So I realised that these in brackets names after the song are the songwriters, not the band. So I knew that really I could go back and get the Slade album because it was all Slade. But that was my intro to being into music, and I thought from that moment on I just wanted to be one of those guys whose names were in the brackets, the guy who wrote the songs.
And so as tell us a little bit about the formation of The Alarm.
Yeah, well, it was by osmosis really. I started I saw the Sex Pistols in 1976, and that was another moment when I stared into the eyes of Johnny Rotten. I was stood this far from him while he was singing his opening song, Anarchy in the UK. It was an incredible experience, and I didn't know what the word anarchy meant. No one had taught me that in my school, at Rhyl High School, and they were singing like Pretty Vacant, and I was thinking, what does that mean? I don't know what pretty vacant is. I didn't know what submission was. That was a word bandied around in the English language that often in the 70s, and in the context of rock and roll, it was like words from another planet. And I was mesmerised by Johnny Rotten's performance. And after the show, I saw him near the bar, and I plucked up the courage to go and talk to him. And I was like, Mr. Rotten, and I was like, oh no, why did you? And he went, what? And he kind of looked down at me, and I said, what does anarchy in the UK mean? He went, oh, fuck off. He spat out, and then he went, Steve, get me a beer. And it was like, wow, it was. I thought, Johnny Rotten's told me to F off. You know?
You've arrived.
It was incredible. And then I actually went to see The Clash not long after in another place called the Electric Circus in Manchester. And it was on the White Riot tour. And I was waiting for the band to come on, and I thought, oh no, the amp roadies had come on and switched all the amps on. I knew the band were coming on any minute now. I thought, I'm desperate to go to the bathroom, you know. So I ran out of the venue, pushed my way past the crowd, and got into the toilet. And I stood against the white wall, having my peeing away. And next minute, Joe Strummer walks in and stands right next to me, and Mick Jones, Paul Simon, and the whole band came in to relieve themselves before going on stage. And I'm there going, closing my eyes, thinking, it feels like I'm in The Clash right now, you know. And then we finished, and it was comedy, you know. There was Punk Day, so everyone had about 8 million zips to zip up after they'd relieved themselves. And I went to wash my hands, and Joe Strummer came and stood next to me and washed his hands. And I looked at the guy and said, what's White Riot all about? And he went, it's about the future's unwritten. And so Joe Strummer said something really positive to me. And then it was almost the negative of Johnny Rotten and the positivity of Strummer sparked The Alarm into being, because I thought, I've got to be in a band and we're going to call it The Alarm.
Wow, amazing. And you guys, during the course of your career, you toured with U2.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that experience. Yeah,
when we met U2 on the last night of their October album tour in December 1981. And I was setting up my equipment on stage, and Bono came to talk to me on the stage. I felt a tap on my shoulder and looked around, it was Bono. And because they hadn't done they played the night before, so they didn't need to do a sound check. And he was very intrigued by my acoustic guitar. It had pickups in it and stickers all over it, and had a harmonica rack. And he was like, I've never seen anyone play that before.
So you're responsible for Bono and the harmonica,
and learning how to play chords. I said, well, yeah, I can. And he said, I don't know how to play guitar. And I went. He said, come back after the show. And that's, you know.
So you taught Bono.
I taught him how to play "Knocking on Heaven's Door" and a few simple songs.
Wow.
And,
was he a good student?
He's good, yeah. And he'd say, I've got this idea for a new song, and he said, but I don't know how to explain it to the band, you know, because I can't play an instrument. So I do this, and he turned my guitar over, and instead of, he had the sound hole down, and he was tapping on the back of the guitar and singing like this tune he had going on. And I thought, well, Bono was great because he knew how to express himself without being musical. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's where his genius lay, where he could hear something that the Edge might play or a bass line Adam might have, and he could find a melodic top line over it, and he could find a word that connected the music with the melody. And he had some brilliant lyrics, but they were all streams. They just flowed out of him. He didn't really write too much down, and it just would evolve through experimentation by singing on the microphone. He wasn't a songwriter like I was. He's become that now, but at the time, he just created music in unusual situations, and they made it. That's what made U2 the band they are, I think. And they were a genius at finding something out of nothing, and that was their real strength. And we could see them up close on a lot of sound checks, jamming things and trying ideas out, and you know. That's where a lot of their music came from at those early times. Because even the Edge, when I first got to know the Edge and would sit in the dressing rooms before shows, he'd say, oh, that's a great chord. I said, that's B minor. He said, well, I don't know what B minor is. You know, and he didn't. He could play the shapes, but he didn't know what they were called because he'd never been taught. He just picked up a guitar and put two and two together and thought, those two strings played like that make a riff. And Bono would find something to sing. And they were the classic punk band, really, who couldn't play, who learned how to become something really special.
Yeah. So finally, we love to hear from people like you who have had big, long careers. What's the biggest life lesson that you take away from this long career?
It's to always enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, it's not worth doing. You know, and I find that when I was a young kid, when we had a band before The Alarm called 17, we tried to force a journalist to come and see the band once, and we went to the NME, which is the big newspaper at the time dedicated to music, and we tried to kidnap a journalist and make him see how good we were. And it all got a bit ugly in the corridors and battling with this journalist. And there was an old writer for the NME called Roy Carr. And he broke up this melee and he said to me, Mike, you know, look, this isn't the way to do it. He said, if you take all that energy that you've showed today and put it into your next song, that's what will bring people to see your band, not this. And that stuck with me forever. And he said, and wherever that song's meant to take you, just be happy that it's taken you somewhere, whether it's the garage or Wembley Stadium. And that's how I've always been. And I think that wherever the music takes you, that's, as long as you enjoy that moment. And I've always been that kind of guy. If I wasn't playing in America, I'd play at home at the weekend. I'd set the amplifier up, and I've never lost that joy of having the gift of being able to play music. And I think that's, a lot of people lose that when they get involved in the music industry, and it becomes about other things, where ultimately it's always about enjoying yourself playing music. And if that's just to the garage or a stadium, so be it.
Mike, that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for coming. Don't be a stranger to next time before 15 years pass.
Yeah, so I'm still here in another 15 years. I'm already planning the next Alarm's 80th anniversary.
Thank you very much for your time today. We hope everyone gets a chance to hear the new album.
Thank you very much. Forwards.
Thanks for watching the You Interview channel. With over 3,000 original celebrity videos, we have one of the largest collections of celebrity interviews anywhere. So remember to like and comment on our videos and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get more involved, you can become a member of the channel. Membership has its perks. You can see exclusive celebrity videos and get the opportunity to ask our celebrity guests questions. We can't wait to hear from you.